My husband's aunt kept introducing his old babysitter as the girl he should have married. He stayed silent for months, until the day she asked that at church. Then, he told everyone the truth about what that woman did to him as a kid. I'm, 28F, engaged to Jake, 28M. We've been together a few years and got engaged this year. Planning our wedding has been exciting, and everything with his family seemed pretty normal, until Aunt Linda came along. Linda is my fiancé's aunt, his mom's older sister, and she's completely obsessed with Monica, 35F, who used to babysit Jake from about age 8 to 13. Monica has her own life now. She's married with kids, and she's always been very friendly to me. She even seemed genuinely happy for us when we got engaged. But Aunt Linda treats Monica like Jake's one true love. Every time we're at a family event, Linda makes a big deal about Monica in front of me and acts like I'm not really there. Honestly, it started off strange almost immediately when I met Jake's family. At our first few dinners together, Linda would say things like, "We always thought Jake would marry Monica someday," or "Jake still talks about Monica all the time." I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just an awkward family joke, but over time it became clear she really believed it. Now, whenever Aunt Linda sees Monica, she hugs her like a daughter and then smiles at me and says something like, "You two would have been perfect together," or "I always knew they'd end up together," always directing it to Monica and ignoring me. It has only gotten worse. For example, engagement party. Last month, we had a small engagement party at a restaurant with both families. Aunt Linda quietly arranged seating so that Monica was at the head table right next to Jake, the spot that should have been next to me. My mom ended up 2 seats down instead. I couldn't believe it. My dad even glared at Aunt Linda, but she just smiled innocently. I smiled and acted like it was fine during the party, but inside I was furious. Later, my mom quietly told me she felt disrespected. I had noticed how hurt she looked. Jake stayed silent the whole time. Family gatherings. This happens at every holiday or family meal. Last Thanksgiving, Aunt Linda grabbed the carving knives and sat Jake and Monica side by side at the kitchen counter. She guided their hands together to carve the turkey and said with a grin, "Carve this turkey like a married couple." The whole kitchen was laughing and whispering. I just sat there mortified, not knowing what to do. At Christmas last year, she raised her glass at dinner and joked, "I think we all knew this day was coming," as if it was obvious Jake belonged with Monica. I didn't know what to say. It felt humiliating. Family photos. Whenever the families take pictures, Aunt Linda makes sure Monica is next to Jake. We have a few group photos from recent events where Monica is standing right beside him and I'm at the edge of the frame. It feels like Aunt Linda is sending a message. At our engagement party photo, for instance, Monica ended up in almost every picture beside Jake while I was barely visible. It's silly, but after a while, those photos really sting when I look at them. Random comments. Aunt Linda will drop awkward comments at other times too. On my birthday, she made a toast that sounded like, "Well, at least everyone here knows who the real bride is," and quickly laughed it off. At a family Christmas dinner, she winked at Monica and said, "Don't worry, we always knew Jake belonged with her in the end." Another time, she patted me on the shoulder and said, "It's okay, dear. Monica already picked out her bridal bouquet." Everyone at the table chuckled, but I just smiled and tried to change the subject. These comments keep piling up and nobody ever calls her out on it. I have tried talking to Jake about it privately. After that Thanksgiving incident, I took him aside and told him this was humiliating and had to stop. He looked really uncomfortable and apologized. He told me he didn't really know what to do. He finally admitted that when he was a kid, he had tried to say something happened with Monica. He said he tried to tell his parents once, around age 11, but Aunt Linda just brushed it off as him being silly or embarrassed. No one believed him, so he never said anything again. I was shaken hearing that. All I could do was hug him and say I was sorry. He just kept repeating that he loved me and that he'd do anything to make me comfortable. He said we should ignore Aunt Linda and not let her spoil our days. I looked at his eyes and saw how tired he was of it. He said he'd handle it, but he wasn't sure how. Last night at our small church's Christmas Eve service, something absolutely shocking happened. We had gone with our families like we always do for Christmas Eve. The church was packed and festive. People were lighting candles, singing carols, and catching up with each other at the end of the service. Jake and I were sitting next to each other in a pew with my parents on one side and his parents on the other. Aunt Linda and Monica were seated a couple of rows ahead of us. Everything seemed normal until prayer requests. After the sermon, the pastor opened the floor for prayer intentions. One by one, people stood up to ask for prayers. For health, for family, for the world. When Aunt Linda's turn came, she stood up and announced that we needed to pray for one specific thing: that Jake realizes Monica is his soulmate before it's too late. In other words, she literally asked everyone in church to pray that he should leave me and get back together with Monica. I sat there completely stunned. The sanctuary went dead silent, and everyone turned to look. My face must have gone bright red. I felt my palms start to sweat. I could barely breathe. Jake's jaw dropped and he looked absolutely horrified. He leaned over and grabbed my hand under the pew, squeezing it tightly. His mom, just ahead of us, stared at Aunt Linda in shock. Some people behind us gasped. I must have swallowed hard a dozen times. The pastor abruptly moved on without addressing Aunt Linda's request, but I was barely paying attention to the next prayer. All I could focus on was what had just happened. For a long moment, none of us said anything. I kept staring at Jake, trying to decipher his expression. He was sitting perfectly still, not looking at Aunt Linda or me. I finally mouthed to him, "What is happening?" He just shook his head and mouthed back, "I'm so sorry." My heart was pounding. I felt sick to my stomach. By the time the service ended, I felt utterly humiliated. We stood up with everyone else and filed out of the church quietly. Outside in the cold night air, I hugged Jake tightly. My legs were shaky and I could still feel my heart racing. He pulled me close and said over and over, "I'm so sorry you had to hear that." I told him it wasn't his fault and tried to comfort him, but inside I was furious and terrified. We drove home mostly in silence. I kept staring out the window at the falling snow, trying to make sense of it. Jake sat beside me quietly, occasionally apologizing again. I told him it wasn't okay, I shouldn't have to go through that, but he just kept saying he loved me and that we'd figure it out. It was after midnight when we finally got home. My hands are still trembling as I type this. I even texted a few close friends about it once we got home. They were all horrified for me. One friend said, "That's insane. How could she do that in church?" Another said, "You did nothing wrong. It helped a little to vent, but I'm still rattled. I have to face them at family dinner tomorrow, and I'm honestly dreading it. The idea of seeing Aunt Linda again right now makes me sick to my stomach, but at least I know one thing. If she tries anything, Jake has seen what she's capable of. For now, I just needed to write this out before I lose my mind." Last night, after that dreadful prayer request in church, things took a turn I never expected. As we were about to leave the service, Jake suddenly stood up from our pew and asked the whole congregation to listen to him. My heart started pounding, because something about the look on his face told me this was going to be big. Jake took a deep breath and then told everyone exactly what really happened with Monica. In a calm but clear voice, he said Monica had molested him from age 10 to 13 and that she had threatened to ruin him if he ever told anyone. He explained that when he was about 11, he had actually tried to tell his mom and Aunt Linda about it, but Aunt Linda just brushed it off, saying he was being silly and likely had a boy crush. No one believed him back then, he said, so he never spoke up until now. When he said that, Monica's face went ashen, and she bolted out of the sanctuary in tears. Immediately, Aunt Linda jumped up and began screaming at Jake that he was a liar and was trying to ruin Monica's life. She was yelling at the top of her lungs, pointing at him, saying he was making it all up. The pastor quickly intervened and asked Aunt Linda to calm down, but she kept shouting that Jake was lying. The whole congregation was frozen in shock. It felt unreal. I just sat there next to Jake, holding his hand under the pew, trying to steady myself. I couldn't move. People around us were staring in disbelief. My dad stood up with anger in his eyes, but he was held back by others. My mom put her head in her hands, and my fiance's mom was quietly crying. Jake looked pale and devastated as he stood there. After he finished speaking, he slowly sat back down next to me. He leaned over and whispered, "I'm sorry, I had to say it." I nodded, tears filling my eyes, and told him quietly that he did the right thing. In that moment, I realized just how brave he was. The same boy who'd been scared to say a word was now standing up to his family in front of dozens of people. He didn't even raise his voice. He just spoke the truth with all the conviction he could muster. When he sat down, he gave me a small, sad smile. I squeezed his hand back and whispered that I loved him. His eyes said everything, pain and relief mixed together. After a few more minutes of stunned silence, the pastor finally wrapped up the service. We all stood and quietly filed out. Outside in the chilly night air, Jake held me close again. He kept apologizing, saying he was sorry I had to hear all of that. I hugged him back and told him I was proud of him for finally telling the truth. He smiled weakly and said, "I just needed everyone to know." We drove home in a daze. Jake and I barely spoke. I was still shaking and feeling a strange mix of shock, pride, and worry about what comes next. I know the truth is out now. Monica ran away crying. Aunt Linda is furious, and every one of our family and church friends now knows our secret. I'm still at home, sitting here with my hands trembling as I write this. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I do know one thing. Jake told the truth, and nothing will ever be the same. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, something else happened. After Jake spoke and Monica ran out, all of us in church were reeling. That's when Jake's mom suddenly stood up, her voice shaking so badly it was hard to understand. She asked to say something, and the entire congregation fell silent again, listening to her. She explained the rest of the story. She had tears in her eyes as she told everyone that years ago, she had walked in on Monica abusing Jake while he was still a small child. She said Monica's parents locked the door and told them if they ever told a soul, they would ruin their family financially. She explained that they were scared and broke, so they chose to stay quiet and pretend it never happened. She whispered that she and Jake's father have regretted it every day since, and she was so sorry Jake had to grow up thinking he was alone in this. I felt like the ground fell out from under me hearing that. Suddenly, everything made sense. Aunt Linda's comments, Monica's presence, all of it. But hearing it from Jake's mom and Jake's dad admitted to protecting themselves instead of him was heartbreaking. The whole church was quiet. Even Aunt Linda sat down, looking completely pale and stunned. When his mom finished speaking, there was just silence. A few people around us were crying quietly. My own mom grabbed my hand. Jake put his arm around his mom and murmured, "Mom," as she sobbed on his shoulder. Everyone hugged each other as we left the church. Outside, we all embraced. Jake's mom kept apologizing through tears. "I'm so sorry," she kept whispering to Jake. He held her and said, "It's okay. I think he was just relieved someone finally understood." Now I'm at home processing it all. The truth is out. Monica ran off crying. Aunt Linda's lies have been exposed, and Jake's parents have admitted their part. The family drama has been laid bare for everyone to see. It's overwhelming, but there's also a strange relief. At least no one can pretend ignorance anymore. We left the church that night holding each other, and I have no idea what tomorrow brings. The whole story finally makes sense, but our family is completely shattered now. It's been 2 months since all this happened. After that insane night at church, Jake and I decided we had to start fresh. About a week later, we quietly went to the courthouse and got married. It was just us and my parents, so small and simple, but it felt exactly right. We exchanged rings and made it official away from all the family drama. No one from Jake's side was there, and they didn't even try to come. Since then, Jake's family has blown up our phones. His mom left frantic, tearful voicemails begging us to come home and apologizing for everything. I listened to one of them. She was sobbing and saying, "I don't know what to do without you. Please forgive me." We decided we needed some space, so we didn't call her back. Eventually, Jake blocked her number. Aunt Linda has also been bombarding us with texts and calls, insisting Jake is lying and that we're destroying Monica's life. We blocked her too. After that, even a couple of cousins who tried to defend Aunt Linda's honor got blocked. We just can't deal with any of it anymore. We've gone completely no contact with that side of the family. It's like a huge weight off our shoulders. In fact, we've already made plans to move out of state next month. Jake got a new job offer about 5 hours away, and we rented a little house near the city where my job is. We're packing up our lives and getting out of Dodge. It's hard to believe how quickly things have changed, but being away from all that negativity feels wonderful. Every day I feel a little more like myself again. We've started planning a proper wedding for a few months from now, this time with people who love and support us. We laugh about how our wedding planning right now involves picking a new zip code and deciding what color to paint our new kitchen. It's been a crazy 2 months, but I feel happier than I have in years. We got married, we cut off all the drama, and we're finally focusing on our own future together. I do still feel a pang of guilt sometimes. Cutting off family is hard, but then I remember everything that happened and know we did the right thing. For once, my fiancé is really free of that toxic situation. We're building a life that's about us, and it's such a relief.